It's a good one. This will make Blues fans think as well. I have to really think about this. My question is your top 3 Birmingham goals of all time. This can be based on emotion, skill, or sentiments. Mine is number 3, Horsfield's equaliser v Norwich for the emotion at Wembley. Number 2, a night game v Forest, who had Peter Shilton in goal. Who was the England goalkeeper. Frank Worthington running down the left, curved into the right-hand corner. No goal in the world would have saved it, and won 2-0. Frank scored both. And number 1, Mick Harford's last-minute winner at Coventry to keep us up. The whole away end and part of the home end was limbs crazy with us Blues fans. So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. One of the main focuses when we started the channel was to make the channel as community-based as possible. So we wanted interaction from fans. Now, as you know, we're a studio-based podcast, so we don't have collaborations and we don't have phone-ins and we don't have things like that. But one thing that we do ask for periodically is questions from fans so that we can respond to them. And we've had a fantastic response to our last request, and that's what this podcast is about. We've picked a number of questions from the ones that were provided for us, and we're going to, based upon the amount of questions that we've received, is do a number of podcasts. So if your question doesn't get asked in this podcast, it's likely it will be in one of our next ones. So we're going to go through a few questions. So I'll read the first question out, Matt, to you, and then see what your response is, and we'll go through the questions as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this is a question from James. And it relates to the signing of contracts. So it looks like the club is extending contracts relatively early on. Keshi and Paik, as of writing. Since then, we've also had Laird as well. Does this speak to a belief that the squad we currently possess is capable of securing upper table championship placement down the line? Or do you think that more additions will be made in January or the summer transfer window? Love the podcast. Cheers, James. And just before I ask you to respond to that, there was a very similar themed question from Just My Fish, which is a regular contributor to our channel, and he said, getting players tied down to new contracts early is very refreshing. We are no longer a selling club. Paik was wanted by Brighton. That door's now closed. Laird was wanted by Sheffield Wednesday. That door is now closed. Hanson was wanted by Luton. That door is now closed. And apparently Keeler is wanted by some Premier clubs, one being West Ham, and talks of Everton. What are the bets that he'll be the next player to sign a new contract? So thoughts on that, Matt?
I mean, for one, it's so refreshing at Birmingham City at the moment. We're so used to being a selling club, and our success over the past 5-10 years has mainly been who we can get in on loans, isn't it? The loans we've got in is pretty much going to dictate the success that we have. So the fact that we're extending contracts, the fact that we're making purchases, it just shows, again, the ambitions of this club and the direction that we're going in. And when Paik, in particular Paik here, signed his contract, I felt like that was another world-class signing, pen on paper. You know, that really felt good to me that Paik signed. He's a world-class player. I genuinely believe that. And the fact he's put pen to paper to me is really good. So I think a lot of this has to come down to financial. It's a financial decision, isn't it? Because when you get your players down on contracts, when that day comes to sell them, you're inevitably going to get more money. It's one part of that. Sorry, it's not the end all or be all, but a big part of this is being financially savvy and getting money for your players further down the line if you choose to sell. And I think that it's great that we're closing the doors, we're getting those contracts signed, and I think we will still recruit when we get to the Championship. If we get to the Championship, don't want to jump on the arrogant bandwagon. I think we will, and I think we'll be there very quickly. And for me, for the second part of the question, Dad, Brandon Keller, I think will get a new contract, and I also think Alfie Chang and Bradley Mayo will be in that category as well.
Yeah, I think that the question's a good one because we saw a flurry, haven't we, over the last week of players that have been having contracts extended. I agree with you wholeheartedly about Paik. I think he to me, I was so happy when that happened.
Brilliant.
But the question is, are we a selling club? I think the answer is no. We're not a selling club anymore. We don't have to sell, but I think every player has their price. And we proved with Jay Stansfield that even though he'd recently or the previous summer signed a 4-year contract with Fulham, and everybody said he's not going anywhere, we proved that didn't really matter. And that's the same with our players. And I believe there's two parts to this. I think firstly, it's tying these players down to longer contracts because we will deemed to play important parts for the club moving forward. But secondly, the point you made is that if somebody does come in to buy them now and still wants them, then we're going to charge more money for them because, as you know, the value of a player is linked heavily to the length of the contract that
Of
they
course,
have.
yeah, it's been a massive
So
factor.
actually, what the club have done by doing this is actually completely increase the asset value of those players. And if those players perform really well, and say a top Championship or Premier League club comes in for them and gives us an offer we can't refuse, then it's quite possible that they could go. So when the things like the door is shut, I don't believe the door is shut for any player. That's not just for our club. I believe that's for any club. But I think what this has done by signing these players on these extended contracts, it's give us a bit more security in the position we're in financially with each of these players should they be sold, but also as well give them players as well the opportunity to play a big part in the future of Birmingham City. So it can't be a bad thing, can it? It's positive, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think as well Keller will be offered a new contract. Very, very impressed with him. He's got to be offered a new contract. He has. And again, I'm sure as the question asked, will he be offered a new contract? I think inevitably he's got to be the next one, hasn't he?
Absolutely. And Alfie Chang and Bradley Mayo, theirs is up the following year. So it's not this summer coming up, it's the next summer. So arguably they'll be the two next youth players, along with Keller, who will get a contract renewal. I'd love to see Alfie Chang get another contract because he's been injury prone. We haven't got to see the best of him, and I think he's got a bright future as well.
I think we'll see him go out on loan in January. We've said this before, haven't we, with him as well. Okay, so that's the first question. Now, the second question relates to Ayumu Yokoyama. Dave Williams said, it wasn't really a question, he said, Yokoyama is our new Jose Dominguez. And then another question came in about him from Jude 9104. I'd like to hear your opinions on Yokoyama. Do you think he deserves more game time? So what do you think about that?
Well, Jose Dominguez, Dad, I think I would have been about, 6 or 7, roughly, when he was sort of at the Blues. I do remember him. I do remember watching Jose Dominguez, but it was a very short stint for me. I mean, you were a big fan of Jose Dominguez, weren't you, Dad?
I was, yeah.
Didn't you compare the Jose Dominguez and Francis partnership, the big and tall, big and tiny?
Yeah.
So that's, he was a quality player. And the fact that those two are even making that comparison is really great as well. But for me, Yokoyama is a really good player. I'm really impressed with him. He's fast. I think he's dangerous. For me, this season, I see him more as an impact sub coming off from the bench. I think he's still settling into England. Everyone knows his English isn't great. I think even at the moment, it's borderline sort of 0 to 10%. He can't really communicate at the moment. So when you throw that into the mix with instructions from Chris Davies, instructions from his teammates, it does create a barrier, doesn't it, on the pitch? Especially with football, it's intense, it's quick, you shout at your players, to get instructions in. So all these sorts of things. Once he settles more, once his English gets better, once he gets a little bit more meat on the bones, because he's quite small, isn't he, Yokoyama? But that's part of his game. He's fast, he's agile. Jose Dominguez was tiny, wasn't he? But he was quick. He had good skill, a good agility. So I love Yokoyama. I think he's one to watch for the future. I think he will get more game time as the season goes, but I think his role this season will be impact sub.
And I think that because he's a young player, it's so easy to put a lot of pressure on young players, particularly in a certain team, certain types of teams. But I think this season, with the amount of quality players that we've signed, I think there's less pressure on him now. That we can see from what we've seen in the little cameo appearances he's made, the snippets, that he's definitely a quality player. But he is a very young player, and you watch him, he's putting all the effort in. But he needs more, to be. Go through like the training, the coaching with Chris Davies, and he needs to develop as well. He needs to develop his physical strength. In my opinion, he does deserve more game time, but I don't think we should be under the impression that we want to pressurise him into being forced into the team, because he doesn't need to be with the players he's got around him now. He's going to have the time to develop nicely, I think, with the players we've got. I do think we will see more of him. I think we will see him through the season. I think I totally agree with you. He'll be used as a substitute, definitely, to come on. When we have a bit of problem breaking down the defence, or we need a bit of flair. But I don't think that we're going to see him as a first team regular this season.
I agree.
Maybe not even next season. I think that he's a good player with huge potential and loads of quality. And if we develop him correctly, it might take a couple of seasons, but there's definitely a good player in there from what I can see.
But I think as well, he offers us something different off the bench, as we've both kind of alluded to. And he's fast, he's direct, he goes around his person. I mean, look at the Wickham game, Dad. He came on, the first thing he did was assist a goal. So he does offer us something different. If we're struggling to break down a team, or we need to offer just something slightly different, maybe we need some more pace and we can visibly see it, he's a perfect outlet to come off on the bench and create that impact, isn't he?
Yeah, I think Blues fans will probably agree with what you've seen of him. I think Blues fans will be a tendency to think, well, we need to see more of him. But again, it's always always, we know from young players that if they're not developed in the right way, it can either make or break their game. And he hasn't got the pressure to be broken in terms of there's other players in the team there that are around him that will help to give him that experience that he needs. And the coaching is going to be very good for him as well. So I see him definitely as a player of the future, but one that we will still see during the season.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we both sort of agree on that as
Agreed.
well. Next question is from Just My Fish, who made the comment related to the first question as well, which is a very interesting question. Will the club spend big in the Championship if promoted, and will any player we sign smash the transfer of Stansfield?
So I think Knighthead are going to keep investing in the team. I think if you look at the Blue squad right now, we do have players which are more than capable of making the step up to the Championship. If you look at like Clara, Bielek, Kawata, Stansfield, I think they're perfectly ready to hold their own in the Championship and to do very well in the Championship as well. But there are positions which we could definitely strengthen. We won't go into that right now because that's not the question. But I think that Knighthead will invest. I think we'll still spend big. I mean, the argument over Stansfield, what are we going to say? Somewhere between 10 and 15 million for Stansfield? Let's just say, in the interest of this podcast, say somewhere between 10 and 15. I could see that possibly being beaten again next year. I have no idea who we would bring in for that money, but Knighthead are going to want to make sure, they're not messing around, are they? They want to get us out of League One, and they'll want to get us out of the Championship when we go up again. So I have no doubt that they will invest and spend a decent amount more money next summer, making us even more Championship/Premier League ready.
Yeah, because the thing about the Championship is that you're at a higher level, therefore the quality and standard play is going to be higher. The transfer fees are going to be higher.
Absolutely.
And I think, that so we've done well, and Gary Cook said when we got relegated that he wanted to assemble a Championship-ready club, which tells us that a lot of the players that we've already bought, they have bought already for the Championship. And therefore, we will still, in order for any club to progress, you have to keep investing, don't you? Keep investing in the squad. So there definitely will be additions. I think we'll see additions in January, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be the merry-go-round that we had in some. Of course, it won't be, but we will still see some additions. Might see a few players go out on loan. Who knows? But there will be some changes in January, I suspect. Will we beat the transfer record of Stansfield? Should we go up to the Championship? Every chance, because the standard of players we're going to want is going to be higher, and at that level, you start adding zeros. On the higher you go up, the more zeros you add.
But also, you can attract the better talent, can't you? We've seen from this year, Dad, we've managed to get a few players from Rangers, a few from the Dutch leagues, a few from the German leagues. The appeal for Birmingham City and for players to come play at Birmingham City becomes even more appealing when you hit the Championship level, and that comes with a price tag. So we're going to inevitably pay more money for those players.
Yeah, I think so. And we know that we've had great investment in the squad already for the players that we've already got, and we know that we did very well to get a lot of those players in League One. But the Championship clearly is a step up, and therefore the standard of play and the opposition is going to be higher. And therefore, the quality of players has to be higher. And, people are asking the question, if we were to drop the current team, our current squad, Birmingham City, into the Championship right now, how would we do? It's completely hypothetical. But I think
be all right.
we'd be all right. But would it be good enough to challenge? That's the thing.
I think mid-table and above.
Yeah.
But
is that good enough for Knighthead?
No, it's not.
No, so that's why I think that there will be investment in January and in the summer, and we'll see investment moving forward now.
What I think, Dad, because in League One, we kind of, obviously Stansfield blew the transfer record completely out of the water, and we did see big fees for Williamson and Clara. But the average, Cochrane, Mark Leonard, you're talking sort of around the million mark, maybe creeping up to $1.5 million for some of these players. I think when we hit the Championship and we want to progress into the Premier League, our average buy will be sort of 5 to 10 million. I think the players that we buy in the standard will go higher. I think we'll see, League One, £1 million. In the Championship, we'll see 5 to 10. So the quality is going to go up, which means the price tag is going to go up. But I think we'll inevitably see quite regularly, if Knighthead want to get keepers challenging, sort of that 5 to 10 million transfer coming in over the summer.
I think you're right. And I think a lot of people raise the eyebrows when we spent whatever amount of money on Jay Stansfield. And I think when we look back in a few seasons' time, in hindsight, that's going to look like a very good deal.
Agreed.
Okay, next question then comes from Apus71. As with all the others, thank you very much for all the questions that have been sent in. Apus sent us about 10 questions, and I've just picked one of the 10. So thanks for taking the time to ask all these questions. The question I've picked is, should Blues consider buying a better goalkeeper in the next transfer window? That's a very good question, because that is something you see a lot of speculation about on social media at the moment.
Well, me and you, Dad, have said openly on this podcast when we do our post-match reviews with the mistakes, and the goalkeepers do make us nervous, don't they? However, Allsop and Peacock Farrell are Birmingham City players, so while they wear our badge and wear our shirt, I will back them every single time they get on the pitch. And if Chris Davis picks them, I trust him and I trust them. So for the time being, we have Allsop and we have Farrell, and I am more than happy with them. In terms of, I trust Chris Davis. I think they're quite similar in terms of level. They both have different strengths, but if we're going to pick one or the other, I think they're very close. For me, possibly Allsop is possibly the slightly better keeper, but I think arguably Peacock Farrell maybe fits into the Chris Davis vision better. But for me, I think goalkeeper is certainly a weakness of the team. And if we don't invest in a goalkeeper in January, I'm almost certain that we'll invest in one over the summer period, especially if we do get promoted back to the Championship, because we'll need someone more solid who's more confident. Not confident, but someone who can just distribute it, I think, even better than Peacock, Farrell and Allsop can. And they are decent at their delivery, but I think with the way Chris Davis wants his teams to play, they need to be next level, don't they? It really is a tough demand on the goalkeepers these days. I wouldn't want to be goalkeeper. It is a thankless job. As soon as an error's made, you are the bogeyman, aren't you? And it's a horrible position. But, I will back Peacock, Farrell, and I will back Allsop. Do I think we need a new keeper? Yes. It will either be January or the summer, but I've got a feeling they'll hold out until the new season, because a goalkeeper change is a big change to the team, isn't it? And it's a whole way you play. At the minute with modern football, we play out from the back. It's a huge role to just change in January, in my opinion. So I think we will see a new goalkeeper. I personally think it'll be the summer.
I think that both goalkeepers have the rest of October and November to prove that they are able to manage is not the right question, but they've both been prone to mistakes, and again partly because they're playing with a new set of players, new team, new system, etc. But they were both brought in specifically to match this style of play. So even though Blues didn't play this style of play before, they did in their previous teams. And clearly they're playing with new players. I think that I believe that this is a position that the club will be looking at closely. And I think at the moment, just the one position that makes me nervous in the whole team. And
we've admitted that on previous podcasts.
Yeah, we have. And I'm not saying that either goalkeeper is a bad goalkeeper. I'm not. I'm just saying out of all the positions, that is the one that I worry about when that goalkeeper, whoever it is, has got the ball. That tells me that something's not quite right there. Now, these players have the opportunity to improve on that as they get through time. But, unfortunately, if we want promotion, we haven't got an awful lot of time to mess around. I think we will have a new goalkeeper in January.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I believe that we'll invest in another goalkeeper in January.
Fair enough, yeah.
And that's for a number of reasons. So, for example, if Peacock Farrell or Allsop got injured, I think Peacock Farrell's currently injured. That means we've got Allsop now as number one, and then we've got Mayo as the number two now. Mayo at the moment is still young and he's a developing goalkeeper, and he's one for the future. But I don't think it's right to throw him in from regular games in the first team just yet. Yeah. So I think we do need another goalkeeper, and I think it will be January. Yeah. But if Allsop or Peacock Farrell can really step up to the plate, it's going to relieve that problem to some extent. But so in my opinion, we will.
It wouldn't surprise me if we did see a goalkeeper coming in January. I've just got a feeling that they'll hold off. Just in my personal opinion, I just think because it's such a big position, they might hold off on that until the summer. But I wouldn't be surprised, and I must admit, same as you, I'd be kind of relieved if we did get another goalkeeper.
So as with all the questions, we're going to ask for your responses anyway, Blues fans. But this is a particularly pertinent one. That's a lot of speculation at the moment or questioning about the goalkeeping. So do you think that the Birmingham City owners and the coaches and the manager will look to get another goalkeeper in January? Put a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Brings us on to the next question. This is a question that I was enjoyed thinking about. This is from Andy. Actually, his tag name is Boston Brum. So Andy is based in Boston in America. So thank you very much for the question. It's a good one. This will make Blues fans think as well. I have to really think about this. My question is your top 3 Birmingham goals of all time. This can be based on emotion, skill, or sentiments. Mine is number 3, Horsfield's equaliser v Norwich for the emotion at Wembley. Number 2, a night game v Forest, who had Peter Shilton in goal, who was the England goalkeeper. Frank Worthington running down the left, curved into the right-hand corner. No goal in the world would have saved it, and won 2-0. Frank scored both. And number 1, Mick Harford's last-minute winner at Coventry to keep us up. the whole away end and part of the home end was limbs crazy with us Blues fans. That was sentimental. Also, I was with my dad at the game, who is long gone. I apologise at the long-winded response. Keep right on, Andy. So thank you for the question. And so this is one that I've had to think about. But do you want to just give us your 3 all-time Blues goals?
Should I go 3-2-1, 3-2-1, or should we go 3-3-2-2-1-1? How do you want to do it?
Just do 3-2-1.
3-2-1. Okay. So my third one is this was a special night for me. I fell in love with the Blues from a very early age anyway, but this was very early on where I just felt this magic that you cannot get anywhere else apart from a football game. And you'll remember it, Dad, you were with me, of course. You've pretty much been on all my Birmingham City memories. And that was Andrew Johnson against Ipswich in the Worthington Cup semi-final.
Yeah.
Remember, because Richard Wright, the goalkeeper, went for a kick. And the pitch was terrible, to be fair. And obviously, it went over his foot. AJ went through. I think that made it 4-1 or 4-2 on aggregate. And he put his top over his head, ran to the corner flag, and the Blues fans all mobbed him. And we actually ran to the pitch that night. First time I'd been on the St.Andrews grass, just with me, you, and my sister. And absolutely fantastic memories, weren't it?
Yeah, I remember that goal well, yeah.
And number 2, I am cheating here, but I'm putting 2 in together because they're very closely linked and themed. So please shoot me down in the comments if you want to. That's Darren Carter, penalty at Millennium Stadium, because obviously that was to get us promoted. Yeah. And in line with that is obviously the Obafembi Martins goal at Wembley for that cup final element. Yeah. But my number 1, and this was in the early Premier League days, I was in the Bear pub in Spark Hill. I was with my cousins and my uncles, and this was Stern John, and it was a last-minute equaliser at Villa Park. Yeah. We were 2-1 down, and I remember it vividly. Darren Pearce kicked a long ball up. Someone won the header. Clinton Morrison turned and shot. The keeper saved it, and then Stern John piled it in the last minute. And that euphoria, I've never been able to replace ever. It was absolutely incredible. Beer went everywhere. And, it was just absolutely nuts. And they're my top 3. But that number 1 for me, the Stern John late minute equaliser. In terms of emotion, because I was going to school the next day, and I knew I was going to meet my school friends, and the fact that we got that last minute equaliser at Villa Park, it was absolutely amazing.
They're great goals, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, I have trouble picking these because there's so many memorable goals. The number 3 for me, I've picked is a great goal. Cameron Jerome versus Liverpool at Anfield in 2009-2010. He literally takes the ball from the halfway line from about 35 yards, just plants it just into the roof of the goal.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I mean, that to me was one that, when one really sticks out in your mind, that really stuck. And obviously, I could go back to something that came to mind was like Trevor Francis's goal against Aston Villa. But that one, I thought, that's one that I can remember really, really vividly. So that was my number 3. Number 2 is quite an amusing one. It's Peake Lenkelman's howler. We were at that game in the Tilton Road end, right behind that goal when that happened. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
And it's because we were actually so close. Literally, we were literally right. We could almost touch Henkelman, couldn't we? Yeah. That was for me. Like you mentioned, the euphoria of that goal for Stern John. When that goal went in, it was like everyone sort of looking around. How's he done that? And of course, he got quite a bit of stick for that. So that was my number 2. And my number 1 goal, because it meant a lot to us. Obviously, we've been struggling over recent years, haven't we? And we've been fighting relegation. It's Paul Caddis's goal against Bolton, because it was we until that goal went in, we were relegated. Doncaster were drawing 1-1 at Leicester or something like that. So we needed that goal, and that goal in the 94th minute, and we were 2-0 down in that game against Bolton as well. So to me, I mean, you could pick loads of goals.
There's so many goals.
But I looked at this and thought, well, what meant the most to me, or how did I feel about them? And those are the 3 goals that I picked. But it'd be interesting to get the Blues fans' opinion. I'm sure we'll get your opinions in the comments below.
And another one that came close was Stern John again, and it was at Millwall away to get us to the playoff final. Because we watched that on the big screen at St.Andrews. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that was great as well. There were so many goals over these. I'm sure you've got goals from the 70s and 80s. Did you know that made special memories?
I've got there's loads. I mean, I can remember goals by Bob Latchford and players of that era. But those obviously were the ones. Obviously, we were together for all of these goals. All in this era. So that's the ones that really come to mind as well. There's also the winner against Bruges as well. Who was that scored that goal? It was Chris Wood. Chris Wood's winner. I think Marlon King was involved.
Yeah.
And that could have been up there as well. But anyway, and I always love watching the video of the Blues fans at Bruges. It's absolutely epic, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
But anyway, that's what we think, Blues fans, about our top 3. Of course, we definitely want your comments below about what your 3 goals are or favourite goals for Birmingham City. It's a tough one. It's tough to do, isn't it? The final question is a bit of a humorous one, really. It says, this is from Web89. Has Gary, i.e. me, seen the new retro track top available in the club store that surely got his name written all over it?
Well, you know me, Dad. I love the merch. We've got every kit this year apart from the third, but my kids have got it. Very rarely say anything negative. But that track top and the other kit they released to me were absolutely disgusting. I'm not a big fan of them at all.
Well,
but...
you can put a picture of the track top on
on
the as we're talking. I must admit, I think maybe that comments come about because it's well known that I like yellow kits, don't I? And I'm always saying let's get a yellow away, and that's got 2 yellow stripes on it. But I must admit, it's not my favourite. I've got to be honest. It's not the best one in the world. So the fact that somebody thinks I've got my name all over is a bit of a worry, to be honest. But then here I am. It's not my favourite. But there's so many good retro kits, and some of the new merch that the club are bringing out is absolutely brilliant. But that's not one of my favourites.
There was just something about the yellow bars on it, and then they also released a top, and it's got like the old collars on. To me they just look.
Yeah, the laces.
Yes, that's it.
That's the choice. Believe it or not, I actually quite like that.
Okay, fair enough. As you say, it's all about opinion. So some people might love them, and the one you're wearing, Dad's quite controversial. I personally really like that one, but some Blues fans don't like the dog collar on it. So all about opinion. But for me, the 2 they released recently, disgusting.
Me too. So that's all the questions for this podcast. Now, remember that we have got enough questions for another couple of podcasts, actually. So we're going to do those over the next week or two. So if your question hasn't come up in today's questions, then I'm sure that it will within those 2. As always, we'd love to really like to thank everybody who took the time to respond with questions. We had such an overwhelming response. It was absolutely fabulous, and some really good questions. And myself and Matt are really looking forward to answering the next batch as well. But of course, as we've said through the podcast, we'd love to have your opinions on what your responses are to some of the things we've been speaking about today. So pop a comment below. If you did like this podcast, as always, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't checked us out on our social media channels already, pop along to our X page and Instagram page. And if you like to listen and watch your podcast on Spotify, you can also do that now. And all the handles will be appearing on the screen right now for all of those channels. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button so you don't miss any future content all about Birmingham City. And myself and Matt will see you on the next video.